"You'll be more comfortable somewhere else, Mom." That's what Alden said while taping the last cardboard box shut. His voice was light casual, like he was helping me rearrange furniture, not evicting me. Kelsey stood nearby, her hand resting on her stomach, the other holding a nursery catalog. She didn't speak, just sipped from one of my mugs. The blue one with the chipped handle. The one Alden had made me in 3rd grade. I'd only stepped out for a dentist appointment. 42 minutes. I came back to find my things already packed. Clothes, books, framed pictures, labeled in black marker storage, Marceline. Not Mom, not even guest. The master's just a better fit for the baby, Kelsey offered finally. And my mother flies in Thursday. They said I could use the guest room temporarily. Said it would be nice to have my own space. But I knew what it meant. They'd already changed the locks on the garage. My gardening tools were nowhere in sight. I walked out to the driveway and stood beside the bin with my handwriting still on it. Holiday china. The same plates I used every Thanksgiving, even the years we couldn't afford turkey. I traced the label with my thumb, then carried the box to the back seat of my car. They didn't notice. That night, I lay on the guest bed, the same bed I bought for Alden in high school when he outgrew his bunk. The mattress sagged in the middle. The sheets were new, not mine. In the morning, her mother arrived. Rolled luggage, pressed blouse hair tied neatly back. She walked straight into the master bedroom without knocking. Kelsey handed her a new set of keys, smiling like it had all gone to plan. I made coffee and sat at the dining table. No one joined me. The chair across from mine stayed empty until her mother took it. By the following week, I had signed a lease for a 1-bedroom apartment 5 miles away. Nothing fancy, just quiet. The apartment had no garden, just a narrow balcony with chipped paint and a plastic chair I bought at the thrift store. But it was quiet. No footsteps above me, no laundry left unfolded on the couch, no one leaving dishes to soak for 3 days. I unpacked slowly, only the essentials. A coffee pot, a single set of dishes, 2 photo frames, one with Alden as a baby, one with my father before he passed. I didn't bring the good towels. I left those behind, folded in the linen closet next to the guest sheets I bought for Kelsey's mother. The same closet they cleared out to make room for her wardrobe. A week after I moved out, I saw it. A Facebook post. Not even from Alden. One of his old high school friends had tagged him in a photo. There she was, Kelsey's mother, in my kitchen. She was standing in front of the tile backsplash I had installed myself over one long weekend, holding a casserole dish like a trophy. The caption read, "Sunday dinner at our place, finally complete." I stared at the photo for a long time. The mugs had been rearranged. The fruit bowl I painted with Alden when he was 9 was gone. A new rug. A new set of knives. My chair at the table wasn't there anymore. She didn't just move in. She replaced me piece by piece. I hadn't just been moved out. I had been written out entirely. Alden never called, never asked how the move went. I left my forwarding address on the counter. No one used it. On the nights I couldn't sleep, I would sit in the dark and scroll through their posts, not to punish myself, but to confirm the truth. They were fine without me. Happier, even. Streamlined. And when a mutual acquaintance posted a family photo from the baby shower, I wasn't just absent, I'd been edited out of memory. I stopped scrolling after that. Instead, I brewed my coffee in silence, packed my bag for the afternoon shift at the university library, and tucked away every paycheck into an account with no one's name but mine. My birthday came and went without a call. Not a text, not a card. But 3 days later, Alden commented, "Looking great, Mom," under a photo I posted of a bookshop window. Public, superficial, painless. I didn't respond. It was easier that way, clean, like they preferred it. I never blocked him. I just stopped making it easy to reach me. No invitations, No reminders. No updates. I stopped offering things no one wanted. Instead, I accepted a part-time position at the university library. 2 mornings a week shelving returned books, wiping down study tables, restocking the coffee station for grad students who barely looked up. It was quiet work, repetitive in the best way. I liked the order, and it came with something I hadn't had in a while: routine, a time to show up, a time to clock out, a reason to pack a lunch. They didn't know I had gone back to work. They didn't ask. At the end of each shift, I deposited the check into a new savings account I opened under my maiden name. The teller asked if I wanted to link it to my main account, and I told her no. I didn't explain. She didn't ask. Every dollar went into that account. Not for gifts. Not for Christmas cards. Not for emergencies involving people who no longer knocked on my door. For me. And the more I saved, the more I began to see things clearly. The silence Alden left behind it wasn't oversight. It was strategy. He wasn't busy. He was comfortable. Because I didn't fight. Because I left quietly. Because I didn't show up at their door or beg to be invited back. They mistook all of it for weakness. But silence isn't surrender. It's space. And when you give a woman space long enough, she fills it with something better than permission. By the end of the second semester, they offered me more hours. I said yes. And when the head librarian mentioned an opening on the development team, I stayed late and asked for the job description. At 67, I was supposed to be slowing down, resting, doing crossword puzzles, and joining walking groups at the mall. That's what people said. But I never liked being told what to do, especially not by people who hadn't checked on me in 2 years. After a year of shelving books and brewing coffee, I was offered something new, 5 hours a week, assisting the donor outreach program. Just light admin work, drafting letters, proofing proposals. But I knew how to write, how to read between lines, and I understood people, especially the ones who gave with conditions. They offered 10 hours the next month, then a contract, then a title, and finally a salary that surprised even me. It wasn't just the money, though, that helped. It was the shift. Suddenly, I wasn't the quiet woman who folded jackets and filled candy bowls. I was Marceline from development. People asked me for input, listened, thanked me when I spoke. But I didn't post about it, didn't call Alden, didn't send an update. It wasn't out of spite. I simply didn't think of them when good things happened anymore. The only one I told was my brother Martin. He had co-signed the lease on my first apartment after the divorce, back when Alden was still in high school, and we were scraping together rent from freelance editing gigs and overtime pay. Martin was proud. We had lunch once a month at the same diner off Route 12, and that day he lifted his coffee mug and said, "You're the only person I know who got promoted after retirement." I laughed. And that should have been it. But Martin saw Alden at a family picnic 3 weeks later, one I wasn't invited to, and mentioned the job. Nothing in detail, just pride. 3 weeks after that, I opened my front door and found Alden standing on the porch, holding a large manila envelope and a forced smile. "Hey, Mom," he said. "Mind if we talk?" Behind him, Kelsey waited in the car, engine running. She didn't get out. I stepped aside and let him in. Not because I wanted to, because I was curious what came next. Alden stepped over the threshold like he still had a right to. He glanced around my small apartment as if measuring it against the house I used to share with him. "This place is cozy," he said, setting the manila envelope down on the kitchen table. He didn't take off his shoes, didn't ask how I was, just said, "I heard about your new job." "That's amazing, Mom." He didn't look proud. He looked strategic. His eyes flicked to the coffee pot behind me. "Got a minute?" I didn't answer. I turned, started the brew, and waited for whatever performance he had practiced in the car. "I know it's been tense," he began. "But Kelsey and I, well, we figured you'd want to be part of the big stuff. College, for instance." He tapped the envelope. Inside 3 college brochures, 2 FAFSA printouts, and 1 folded sheet of paper with Alden's handwriting. We thought you'd want to help. Not could you? Not if it's possible. Just a quiet assumption that I would because I always had. They didn't ask where I'd been sleeping the night they boxed up my things. They didn't ask where I'd eaten the following Thanksgiving. But now, they asked no expected money. I placed the coffee mugs down carefully, one in front of each chair. He reached for his without thanks. I know we had our differences, he said. But they're your grandchildren. I stirred sugar into my own cup, slow and even. Then I looked up and said it. Ask the woman who took my place. His face twitched like a muscle he couldn't control. Mom. She's not. She has the master bedroom, I said. She hosts the holidays. She poses in my kitchen. The silence sat heavier than the coffee steam. I didn't come here to fight, he muttered. I nodded. Good. Because there's nothing to fight about. I stood and opened the door. Alden didn't take the envelope with him, didn't finish his coffee. Just walked out shoulders stiff like he'd carried in a favor and left with a debt. That night, after the door clicked shut behind Alden, I poured myself the rest of the coffee he didn't finish and pulled the old yellow notepad from the drawer. The one with the torn corner and a coffee ring on the back cover. Not for writing poems. Not tonight. Tonight was for records. I started at the top. Groceries. April 2004. The month Alden turned 10 and decided he didn't like anything green except mint ice cream. Piano lessons 12 months never missed. Speech therapy after the accident $90 per session. Twice a week. Camp fees. Back to school shoes. A retainer he lost 3 times before I gave up replacing it. Rent for his first apartment when he dropped out of college and didn't want to tell his friends. Deposit for the second one when he got back on his feet. 2 tires, 1 urgent flight home, 1 emergency vet bill for their dog while they were on vacation. I flipped through pages, lines, ink faded in places. No spreadsheets, no formulas. Just a list of every time I paid without being asked, showed up without being expected, solved what no one acknowledged was a problem. The total $148, $630.72. Give or take a few receipts lost to time. Not one of those entries said loan. Not one had a repayment plan or a guilt trip attached. They were just facts, not debts. But looking at them now, I saw something I hadn't let myself admit before. I was never resented for what I didn't give. I was forgotten for what I always did. Because they never had to ask. Because it was always me who filled in the cracks. I closed the notebook gently, like folding a chapter shut. No fire, no rage, just math. In the morning, I slid the envelope Alden left into the back of the notepad, not to save it, to keep everything in one place. And then I brewed coffee, got dressed, and headed to the library where a donor had requested my input on a 6-figure grant proposal. The first message came 3 days after Alden walked out of my apartment. You wouldn't be where you are if I hadn't raised you alone? That's how he opened it. No greeting. No apology. Just a quiet accusation disguised as reflection. He sent another an hour later. If you had room in your heart, you'd help your family. Family. That word used to mean long night sewing costumes for school plays and driving to rehearsals after double shifts. It used to mean standing in the back of a room just to be close to his life without intruding. Now it meant guilt with a subject line. I stared at the screen for a long while before setting the phone face down. What he didn't remember, what they never seemed to, was the day I carried my own boxes out of the house while Kelsey's mother arranged throw pillows on the bed that used to be mine. No one offered to help. Not Alden. Not the woman cradling her pregnant belly in my kitchen. I had bruises on both arms for 2 weeks after the move. Not from violence, just from lifting what used to be mine alone. They didn't notice. Or if they did, it didn't slow them down. Now, years later, I was supposed to open my checkbook and call it love. Supposed to forget that my worth had been reduced to square footage and convenience. supposed to be grateful that they remembered me at all. I didn't reply. I let the message sit there for hours unread but seen. Then I blocked the number. Again, not in anger, in clarity. Because a son who only remembers his mother when tuition's due isn't a son seeking reconnection. He's a man looking for a safety net. And I had stopped being one of those the day they handed my room to someone else without blinking. Later that night, as I prepared materials for the next donor meeting, another message appeared, this time from Kelsey. I didn't open it. I just turned off my phone and poured another cup of coffee. The next morning, I brewed my coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the drawer beneath the old calendar I never bothered to update. Inside was the red folder, legal papers neatly clipped, a copy of my living trust, a health directive, and the most recent draft of my will. I had meant to review it for months, but life had been busy. Better even. I hadn't felt the urgency until now. The envelope from Alden sat on top. I moved it aside without opening it. I didn't need to revisit that part. I remembered every word. The will had Alden's name once. It had a paragraph about helping the twins with tuition. It had mentioned Kelsey by name, even thanking her for keeping the family close. All of that was gone now. I had the documents redrafted last year when the library made my consulting role permanent. I remember sitting in the attorney's office as he walked through each clause, asking carefully, "Do you want to name your son as an executor?" I had laughed. Quietly. Now the language was clean, impersonal, professional. The twins, my grandchildren, would still receive something, but not through their parents. It would be a scholarship fund managed by the same trust that funded 2 other educational endowments I'd helped build for the university. No direct access, no lump sum, and no say. Alden's name was nowhere on the new documents, Kelsey's neither, and the woman who posed in my kitchen with a casserole would not inherit my silver. I added one more clause. My attorney said I had the right. A simple line added beneath the list of beneficiaries. All named parties must be in active, respectful relationship with the testator at time of death. No lawsuits, no disputes, just clarity. If they wanted the legacy, they'd have to show up before the obituary. I printed the revised page, initialed it, and slid the folder back into the drawer. Then I poured the rest of my coffee into a travel mug, grabbed my tote, and left for the grant committee meeting 15 minutes early. 3 weeks passed. No knocks. No voicemails. No envelopes slipped under my door. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel like loneliness, but like space. Like someone finally stopped talking over you. I got up each morning and brewed my coffee just the way I liked it. Strong, no sugar, a splash of oat milk. I drank it slowly, barefoot in a kitchen where nothing was borrowed, and no one sighed when I opened a drawer. I walked to the park most afternoons. There was a public garden tucked behind the tennis courts, small, but someone clearly cared for it. I learned the name of the woman who trimmed the rosemary there. I didn't tell her I used to have rose bushes taller than me. I just said her lilies looked lovely. Sometimes I brought a book. Sometimes I just sat. My back stopped aching. My sleep came easier. I bought linen sheets and stopped saving them for guests. I started saying no to things that made my stomach twist. I didn't explain myself. One morning, on the way to the library, I took a different route and ended up near the neighborhood I used to live in. I wasn't planning to stop, but the light turned red right outside my old house. I looked. The roses were gone. All of them. The flower beds had been stripped and filled with gravel. The grass had patches, dry and uneven. The front porch looked smaller than I remembered. Like the house had shrunk without me. I didn't feel sad. Not really. Just separate. Like I was staring into someone else's memory. The house didn't belong to me. But the woman in the driver's seat. She did. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror before the light changed. Same eyes. Fewer questions. The lines around my mouth had softened somehow. I turned left at the next block. not toward the past, just forward. And when I got to work, I found an envelope on my desk, this one from the head of advancement. Inside, an invitation, a dinner, a new role. I mailed the updated deed to my lawyer on a Thursday morning. The folder was slim, clean signatures, revised clauses, no gaps left for negotiation. I didn't add a note. I didn't need to. The paperwork said everything. Back home, I slid the drawer shut and locked it for the first time in years. Alden never called again. No apology. No explanations. Just silence. But I had stopped waiting for him to fill it. I replaced the old armchair in my reading nook that week. The one with the frayed cushion he used to sit on as a boy, legs too short to reach the floor. I picked a new chair, deeper, firmer, wrapped in dark green fabric that matched nothing else in the room. Just because I liked it, I bought one chair. Not because I don't expect company, but because I don't build extra space for people who only show up to take. I placed it by the window, right where the light hits in the late afternoon, next to the shelf of books I'd collected over decades, some still with dog-eared pages and scribbled notes from when I thought I had to justify every hour I sat still. Now I sit still without explaining. That morning, I brewed my coffee and didn't pour a second cup. Didn't set out another spoon. Didn't check my phone. I opened my notebook instead. The yellow one still thick with entries, some numbers, some memories, all of it mine. On the newest page I wrote, "This home is no longer available to people who mistake my silence for surrender." Then I underlined it. Once. I folded the page and tucked it into the back pocket of the ledger, right next to the envelope Alden had left. I kept it not out of sentiment, but as a record of who I used to be, of what I used to allow. Then I sat in my new chair, let the light move across my hands, and turned the page.